Wolverine number 7 is chapter 16 in Marvel's 10 of Swords 22-part event, a testament to the madness and unpredictability of the X-Men's Tournament of Champions in a wild, chaotic story with an intense unreality throughout. Today I'll answer, what is Saturnyne, the omniversal Magistrix and ruler of Otherworld's game, and perhaps more importantly, is it even her game anymore? Who dies, and do we think they're actually off the board as of Wolverine number 7? Theories and predictions for what's to come in X-Men and the 10 of Swords events as we approach the 22nd chapter and the conclusion of this long-running event here in the month of November 2020. Hey everybody, I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. You are listening to Krakin Krakoa number 116. If you like the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel and content, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing and commenting below as you watch. You can find full X-Men and comic book reading orders on comicbookherald.com. Spoilers for discussed comics will follow. Writers Benjamin Percy, Gerry, Duggan, art by Joshua Cassara, colors by Guru-eFX, and letters by Cory Petit. Opens with Magik traversing Otherworld to find Pogg, your Pogg, for their battle. I could read Josh Cassara's Pogg vs. Magik for a million years straight. It looks that great, but that wasn't really meant to be. Nonetheless, Cassara and Guru-eFX are the absolute champions of the 3 10 of Swords chapters released today, and honestly, if Cassara wasn't on such a tear lately, his story with Matt Rosenberg and Wolverine Red and Black and Blue is also well worth checking out. I might have come away feeling very differently about 3 uneven comics today. Saturnine tournament has gone from an apparent duel to what it looks like when I'm making up an obstacle course for my son in the backyard. Okay, throw this tennis ball in this bucket. Now jump on one foot on those rocks. Dinosaur wrestling time! Pogg and Magik do in fact arm wrestle, and Pogg, giant as he is, wins easily. Arakko takes the lead 3-1. But yes, the chaos of what Saturnyne's games are is really interesting. It's quite different than I expected. Again, what we all thought was going to be a tournament of sword bearers in sword battles. We thought it'd be Magik versus Pogg. Magik certainly wished that. But then Saturnyne is just making up seemingly random games for all of them to participate in. Now, on Wolverine's behalf, this of course being a Wolverine comic, he has an actual duel against Summoner, as they are told, a battle to the death. This takes place in the realm of Blightspoke in Otherworld. It's a realm of collapsed realities. In this realm's data page that we saw in the first half build of the event, it's called a celestial graveyard of failed realities, from half-baked singularities to the shattered bones of gods. In short, it's really, really cool cosmic stuff, and Joshua Cassara and eFX have a field day laying out Blightspoke, a realm that I'm super glad we got to visit here. Cassara, again, he brings the heat on the Summoner vs. Wolverine battle of Blightspoke. The panel layouts, the design here, absolutely eye-popping and well worth owning a copy just to see. There's also some really cool visual tricks where, you know, we kind of get that Kirby crackle going and sort of an older school style of comic book art as they go through these various realities of Blightspoke. I mean, watching this incredible visual display, I'm definitely questioning the use of data pages to summarize battles, which we've seen both in Marauders and here in Wolverine. Again, like we see it in the detail of the future battle in the pages of Marauders. It makes a little more sense there than it does here, summarizing the battle of Blightspoke and depriving us another Cassara page and Guru-eFX colors. Like, why give us text when there's all this visual candy on display? Just seems like a major mistake in this issue in particular. So Saturnyne blatantly stacks the deck against Wolverine throughout this comic, but it's particularly when he kills Summoner in Blightspoke, seemingly, saying only that Summoner, he was the only one that fought to the death, actually, giving the point to Arakko. So Wolverine survives the battle of Blightspoke, but still somehow loses the point in killing Summoner. Now, talking about this death of Summoner, it kind of feels like it should be a bigger deal given the character's setup and role. I mean, it's not just that Summoner was the first Iraqi mutant we've seen in the build to 10 of Swords, literally all the way back in X-Men number 2, written by Jonathan Hickman, so much as the space and intrigue given to the role of Summoners on Arakko and Amenth throughout this event and in all the comics building up to it. You know, like, we've seen a lot of this character so far, the most that we've seen of any of the mutants of Arakko. So to see him taken out kind of without any real fanfare was surprising. And again, like that's that sense of unreality that I'm talking about, where it's like, no, that can't be it. That can't be it for this character. We've seen so much buildup. So that leads to the question for me, is Summoner actually dead? I mean, given Blightspoke's tenuous relationship with reality, it feels quite possible that Summoner could be resurrected in some capacity as an agent of Sheriff Gia Whitechapel and her posse, the inhabitants of Blightspoke. Another option is, of course, Whitesword resurrecting Summoner, despite his clear wishes against such a thing in the pages of the earlier Marauders number 15, in adding a Summoner to his White Sword army, which would be, I think, actually the most interesting. We do, from this battle, jump to Storm vs. Wolverine in a drinking contest against members of the same team, apparently, which is confusing to everyone, right? Like, again, it's this sense of unreality. Now, here's a big thing, and this is where we start getting into Saturnyne's secret that I've been postulating here and really am feeling now, especially in these issues. Mad Jim Jaspers is present enough throughout this comic and throughout this series so far that I think there's a strong chance that he's running the show, okay, and that he's running the Omniversal Majastrix, probably without her knowledge, and not the other way around. I mean, Jaspers keeps showing up. I keep plugging it, but Jim Jaspers' history in the pages of Alan Moore and Alan Davis's Captain Britain and the Jaspers Warp story arc in Captain Britain is super interesting, right? Like, he operates as an Omega level mutant, although he is not described as such in the, official Hickman Omega level mutants, but like that is the type of power that this character has. So to see him working as a cog, as a ruler of the crooked market, but not the ruler of Otherworld, I mean, it's not impossible to justify, and it's obviously the way the story has been presented so far, but like, just given the chaos and the lack of sense to everything that's happening here, it feels like Jaspers could be having way more of a hand in this, and it feels more his style, frankly, than I otherwise would have guessed. And again, like, he's in this a lot. We're getting a lot of data pages from Jaspers. He's here serving Wolverine and Storm their drinks. I definitely am not ruling out that Jaspers has way more of a hand in affairs than we would have guessed. Elsewhere here, we do also get Death, the son of Apocalypse and one of the Four Horsemen, gives Jaspers a shiny beetle. Okay, I also more or less skipped over the fact that Death reveals his Egyptian puppy mask is in fact a mask in the pages of Marauders, and that his face will death stare any waiter who brings him sacred scarabs for dinner. But aside from learning here that Death is really into beetles, he kind of feels like a White Album obsessive to me, we yet again see Jaspers running schemes. I don't know what that beetle is, but he's the one connecting with Death to get it. Another option, in terms of why is everything so wild right now, is that Saturnyne has been replaced by doubles. I mean, historically, like, all the time. Like, that happens constantly in the pages of Excalibur. We have Sat, you're 9 with the number 9, or, again, like, we've had various Nazi sort of connected versions of the character, again, in the pages of Excalibur. Plus, as I've been saying a bunch lately, we do not have great clarity on what happened with Saturnyne after the events of Secret Wars. If there's no Captain Britain Corps put back together, why is there a Saturnyne? So we have to question, like, where are all the multiversal versions of this character? Could they have combined and merged all together in one? And that's why this version of the character is so powerful and so godlike. Again, like, this character has power and has status in Otherworld historically, but not like this. Not where she's literally snapping her fingers and everyone is stopping moving and doing exactly what she says, and again, Wolverine goes to kill her and she has all the power in that situation. So having said all that, it's still totally reasonable that all this chaos would be the scheme of the Omniversal Majastrix we've come to know, given that she's very much worked against the best interests of the X-Men time after time, such as trying to apprehend the Phoenix back when it was Rachel Summers, just as one very small example. So while Wolverine is getting ham-boned and almost smooching Storm, Solemn calls in Wolverine's favor. Unbeknownst to Wolverine, he owes him a fight. Okay, that was the deal they made for Wolverine to get his Muramasa blade from Solemn. In this case, Solemn says, all right, I have to fight War, who absolutely hates me for killing her husband. I'm out of here. I'm calling in that favor. Wolverine, now having just killed her son, Summoner, he's still hammered on crooked market booze, and his healing factor is apparently not working. So we get kind of the tease here that the Three of Swords is in play, which is a tarot card that means emotional pain and heartbreak, which is definitely what War is feeling. And we see Saturnyne clearly lashing out for Wolverine trying to murder her in Marauders, which, fair. The degree to which Saturnyne is stacking the deck in favor of Rocco is pretty interesting to me. If I had to guess, she's just trying to move the war out of Otherworld and doesn't really care what Rocco Amenth do to Krakoa and Earth once they get there, so long as Otherworld is untouched by their war. Maybe. It does feel a little short-sighted given Rocco's conquering of Drydoor and clearly hungry Amenth hordes. I mean, what's to stop them after they've conquered Krakoa and gone it back from turning around and conquering Otherworld after the fact? I'm not totally sure, so I feel like there might be more to it than just that. The chapter ends with Wolverine with the sword in his neck, War losing a hand, and the story continuing in the pages of yet another Wolverine-centric title in X-Force number 14. I'll admit, I've been surprised to the degree that this event has circled around Wolverine, with likely star turns in 6 of the 15 non-core event issues, not counting like Creation and Stasis, by the time X-Force drops next week. Now, obviously, Wolverine is a hugely popular character, and he's been kind of off the board, in a sense, since his Death of Wolverine story in 2014, but Ten of Swords didn't necessarily feel like an event, to me at least, that was really going to hinge around this character, Wolverine's, story, and actually it has become that. Again, he's the character that we've seen the most of in many ways, which is kind of surprising. For better or worse, I'm not totally sure. The tournament's a lot less predictable than people anticipated, and that's mostly a good thing. So much complaining about the event not going anywhere, and I myself am guilty here in terms of criticisms. Now that the tournament is flying, absolutely flying, it feels hypocritical, right? If we're going to say, well, this isn't going anywhere, we haven't gotten to the fights yet. Now that we're here at the tournament, criticizing it for moving too fast feels like hypocrisy. Although, on the other hand, had the tournament started earlier in the event, maybe it wouldn't need to feel like it's flying, now there's that sense of, well, maybe it's just we're running out of space and we have to rush through this thing, ironically, because we took our time so much in the front half. I don't know. I think there's a balance that probably will be restored by the end of this, but definitely I think the back half has been weaker in terms of living up to the hype set in the first half of the event, when we were definitely taking our time just going on these Gathering of the Swords journeys. So next up in X-Force number 14, the Krakoan reads Deathblow, which hopefully is a Wildstorm crossover, but I'm not crossing my fingers. I want to hear, what do you think about today's 3 chapters in the Ten of Swords event that came out, all today? So we had Marauders 15, Excalibur 14, and now Wolverine number 7. Fairly controversial. Let me know your thoughts on the day of comics and this contribution to the Ten of Swords event. This is the biggest shift in what this event is and what Ten of Swords is going to be, I think, that we've seen so far. Again, it's not necessarily mysteries unraveled so much as just hey, you thought it was going to be one thing. No, actually, it's this. It's something else. Are you good with that? I'm pleased with that in the sense that it's different and I'm surprised, which is nice. Again, I don't want to be sitting here saying, oh, this, and this are going to happen, and I know exactly how the story's going to play out, because obviously, the thrill of reading it is that I don't know that, and that new wild things are going to happen. Now, in terms of execution, I think there's some sloppiness to it, right? I think it's been a little weird, but weird is often good. It's more interesting than predictable, I think. So, to that end, I'm mostly pleased with the way these comics played out and the way the event is shaping up differently than expected. So I appreciate all your thoughts, and definitely leave some comments below. You can find me at comicbookherald.com, at Comic Book Herald, pretty much anywhere on social. Look for the Best Comics Ever and My Marvelous Year podcast for a whole lot more from me, Dave Busing, and Comic Book Herald in general. But thanks, everybody, for listening. Again, there are 3 chapters released today, so check out the Krakin, Krakoa, X-Men playlist. I have a Ten of Swords playlist specifically. There's a link in the show notes if you want to keep up on each chapter and each part of the journey. We're on part 16 of this event, again, going into part 22. So thanks, everybody, for listening, and as always, enjoy the comics.